All right, there we go. Excellent. Yeah, we are live. So then, what happens is it notifies all the people on LinkedIn that we're live,
Cool.
and they can, like I said, start trickling in. Um, so how's the week been going? You said you're down in Orlando traveling, or is it just down at the plant?
Well, I flew into Orlando Monday and traveled around to some job sites that our material has been used, just to check in and see how things are going. Did that on Monday, and then I was at the plant Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Um, like we talked about earlier, it wasn't the best thing, leaving 75-degree weather to come home to a potential 3 to 4 inches of snow this weekend, but it is what it is. So it was a great week.
That's what makes you tough.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. You know what? We've got people starting to come in. Get my captions up. Here we go. In the chat. All right. Judy Johnston is here. Hello, Judy. So with that, I'll get this thing kicked off.
Sounds good.
So good morning, everyone. Mike Wisniewski here, CEO of Materials Exchange, the only digital lumber and wood panel marketplace live in the world. Today this is our smart market call, of course, and today we have a very special guest, Mike Treadwell from Global Fireproof Solutions. But before we get to Mike, I'll give you a little market recap. Ash was at a doctor's appointment actually this morning. I just looked out my office and he just rolled in. I guess that's a good sign. He made it out of the doctor's office. But the lumber market, continues to be strong. Second best market in the history of lumber. We have an expiring futures contract today. The January contract is expiring. Everyone will be looking at March for some direction. But it's the same story. Robust takeaway. There's challenges at shipping, challenges with the mill's production and Omicron, the virus. But all in, I think we're getting closer to a point of equilibrium. But time will tell. I want to talk about the trade of the week. The trade of the week came from a new initiative here at Materials Exchange, which is we call our push notifications, where we're pushing out to the digital network that is on our platform. We push them out what we think are some of the best values in their neck of the woods, in their neighborhood. We did a push on 2330 seconds TNG OSB produced in Europe. We're calling it Euro OSB. And we put the push out. One of the users' bosses actually saw that newsletter go out and said, "Hey, that's a great deal. Go get some of that." So from that push notification, 5 truckloads of 2330 seconds was sold. What I really want to highlight is the product itself. This is TECO stamped. It is the same OSB that is produced in North America. It just happens to have fiber from Europe, and it was produced in Europe, came across on a boat. But as far as the performance of it, it is exactly the same. I highly recommend taking a look at it. Do whatever you need to do within your organization or within your projects to make sure that it can be specified. Because in the market we have today, having flexibility is the key. In having flexibility of the items you can use is the key to making sure you're getting the best value and getting the best return on your work. So with that, we're going to slip right over to Mike. Hello, Mike Treadwell.
Hello, nice to meet you. Good to be. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's the story of how we met is rather interesting, and it surprised me, quite frankly. We met
Great.
at the Truss Builder Show, the BCMC Building Component Manufacturers Conference in September it was, in Omaha.
Correct.
So why is a fireproofing guy at a truss show? What the heck are you doing there?
We, because of the type of fire treatment we do and the way that it's applied, it does not actually reduce the strength of the wood. And therefore, it actually lends big advantages to truss companies that are used to doing designs with, your typical pressure treated fire or pressure impregnated fire retardant treated wood that actually dramatically reduces the strength of the wood. The way that we apply it, it actually allows the truss companies to structurally design their trusses the same with or without a fire retardant, and which can actually add a good bit of margin to their bottom line at the end of the project.
For sure. So, how new to like the truss industry is your product?
We've actually been working with quite a few truss companies for 3 or 4 years now, and that list is growing. It grows every day. There's a ton of interest, and as time goes on, the list of truss companies that we're working with will continue to grow.
All right, let's do this. We jumped ahead with that. Let's jump back, and I'm going to pull your website up. First off, what the heck is fire treatment? Why do we need it? I'm looking. Let's take a look at this, and I see pink wood. What's going on? What's the purpose of this?
Well, so the reason for fire treating wood is it's to improve the fire performance of wood and wood-based products. In order for wood to actually be fire treated, a fire retardant chemical must be applied to all surfaces of the wood. And these fire retardants, they actually provide permanent fire protection, and they're designed to improve different reaction to fire parameters, such as reduced ignitability, smoke development, and flame spread, all of which are requirements of the building code. Now, as far as when or where fire retardant treated wood is needed or required by code, there's 5 different construction types, but there's really only 2 that actually require fire treated material to be used. One of the big ones is in type 3A construction for multifamily apartment projects.
Of course, yeah.
They often require the exterior walls to have a 2-hour fire rating, and this is where fire treated wood is used as a component of the exterior wall assembly to help achieve that 2-hour fire rating. And what the fire treated wood does is it's kind of a sense of insurance. It provides additional time for, in the event of a fire, for residents to actually be able to get out of their apartment or whatever. And it also provides more time for firefighters to hopefully be able to extinguish the fire before the structural integrity of the building is starting to give way.
Okay. So, the reality is you get a set of plans come across your desk, and all of a sudden it says, hey, this part of the building needs to get fire treated. And you're like, uh-oh, now what am I going to do?
Right.
So, let's walk through a little bit of the history of fire treatment. My guess is that you've got sprinkler systems, of course, and
Correct.
they can be extremely expensive. So then they kind of moved into, well, let's have this idea where we're going to insulate the structure from fire and give you that time, right?
Correct. Right.
So, back in the day when I was working construction, I remember what a mess it would make when they would come in and spray that foam on the steel I-beams and stuff.
Right.
Which, I'm looking at, you guys do have a process to do that as well, right?
We actually don't do the cementitious. It was like a cementitious, which kind of looked like foam. We actually don't do that particular application. We're actually working with some fire or intumescent coating manufacturers to be able to apply it. Primarily, we'll apply the intumescent coatings to steel, And that actually does truly provide a fireproofing up to 4 hours. It's more of an aesthetic paint as well that goes on. And, as you can see in the one picture on the left, it actually will dry white. But there is capabilities of being able to tint it and actually have it be your finished surface, the finished paint.
But at the end of the day, you're taking this piece that's if it this member that if it was exposed to fire, you got an issue. You put some sort of coating on it, and then it has a better chance or a longer time horizon inside of a fire. So then, what was the first foray into lumber? How were they first fire treating lumber?
Well, the first known form of fire treating, and in fact, it's still a way that it's done today, is by a pressure impregnated process.
Okay.
The companies that actually provide your exterior pressure treated lumber use the same process. They use the same vats and everything. They just switch out the chemicals from a preservative treatment to a fire treatment, and they're basically injecting the wood fibers themselves with a fire retardant chemical.
Okay. And then they came up with the solution your company provides, which that's not the process. What's your process, and how is it different?
So our process is actually, we have machines in our factories that we feed pieces of wood through that. There's a series of spray heads that apply the fire retardant to all surfaces of the wood, and it penetrates into the wood, becoming permanent for the life of the wood while it's installed, and it actually provides the required fire performance that's dictated by the code. It is a different type of process, but it's a penetrant that we use that in turn does impregnate itself into the wood, and like I said, it does remain permanent for the life of the structure.
All right. So I have to admit, I'm a little confused. I don't want to nerd out too much here, but I do understand pressure treated because I've seen it in action. They stick the wood into this big tube and they put it under pressure, which drives that chemical into the wood.
Correct.
The theory, or maybe it's been proven, is that by doing such, it's changing the strength characteristics of the wood such that it's a lower strength.
Exactly.
Why, from what you're saying, is you spray the chemical on there, and it penetrates on its own, and the strength characteristics remain.
Correct.
Is there some magic going on? Are you using different chemicals? What happens? What's the difference?
Well, really, the main difference is the application process. When a pressure impregnated process is done, it's literally jamming the wood fibers full of water-based chemicals, and it's destroying the molecular structure of the wood, which in turn reduces the strength.
That makes sense. Okay.
Truss companies, when they do designs with your typical pressure impregnated fire treated material, the programs that they use for engineering will automatically take as much as a 35% strength loss when doing the designs and engineering. Whereas, they don't have to take those reductions with the end product we produce.
Okay. So that makes sense. You put something under pressure and jam, solution into it. It's definitely going to make a bit of a change. Yours, on the other hand, is on the surface. It penetrates. I'm guessing probably not as deep. Maybe it does, but nonetheless, after the process is done, the piece of material is fire resistant.
Correct.
So, talk to me a little bit about OSB. I know we showed a picture of that up there. OSB. How easy is it to get the penetration of your product on OSB?
The manufacturer of the chemical has done the required testing as far as the fire performance testing on OSB, and basically the chemical makeup of the fire retardant that we use, it's able to penetrate. It basically will reduce the surface tension of the wood, allowing the fire retardant to penetrate into the wood and become permanent. Um, it's I don't know all the special recipe that the manufacturer of the chemical uses.
And they probably don't want you to know, I'm
No,
sure.
yeah, exactly right. So it's at the end of the day, they have the paperwork showing that the testing's been done. We apply it per their specifications, and we have truckloads that roll through our facilities.
All right, so let's talk about the process. If I was so fortunate to have a project that is right next to your facility or in the neighborhood, um, I, I need to fire treat my studs and and OSB for that, first floor, let's say. Um, what do I do? Are
I
you coming to my job site, or am I going to you?
No, basically, our all of our customers they actually will ship their truckloads of lumber, plywood, OSB. I mean, you name it, LVLs, glue lams, LSLs, PSLs. They ship them to our facilities. We have one located just north of Atlanta in Cartersville, Georgia, right off of 75, and one just outside of Orlando in Groveland, Florida. So they'll ship it to us. We'll fire treat it, and then we wrap it and let them know when it's ready, and they send the truck back in to pick it up. And then at that point, they take it to wherever it needs to go. Some of our customers will take it to their yard for storing. Some of them will pick it up and take it directly to a job site.
What's the typical lead time? So, yeah, how
Yeah.
long is it going to take?
Our lead times are actually never more than 2 weeks, and typically, if need be, what we do is we keep really close watch on the work that we have in-house. And if somebody calls us up and says, hey, is there any way you can get this done quicker? We look at the work we have on hand. We touch base with customers with the work on hand to find out what their needs are. If they say, well, we don't need it for 2 or 3 weeks, then we'll accommodate customers that need rush orders. And I mean, there's been times where we've received a truckload of OSB on a Monday and they picked it back up on a Wednesday. We can't promise that all the time, but we do have that capability. So,
All right. So here's my next question. I am extremely sensitive to freight. That's, materials exchange is in the freight game. We ship the product. So if I ship a load in and it is fully loaded as far as weight goes, am I going to be able to get that whole load on the truck on the way out?
pretty much every load that whatever comes in goes right back out.
So
There's very little weight added. I mean, if you were at 47,900 pounds, is there a possibility that it could put you at 48.1? Sure, there's that possibility. But, we try to keep that line of communication open with our customers, and try to have them stay, right around the 47,000 pound mark. And that usually leaves us a really good window in the event that there is just a little bit of weight added that keeps them underweight and avoiding tickets.
Yeah, no doubt. That's really interesting. All right. Let's just go back a step. You were talking about all the different products. And you were throwing out LVLs, PSLs. I mean, is there any product that doesn't fire treat from the lumber ecosystem?
Well, it really depends on the hardness. If it's going to be like an epay, number one, epay probably doesn't need to be fire treated because it's probably hard enough to where it's self fire protectant. But as long as the chemical or the products that ship in, like I said, we're doing LVLs, glue lams. As long as the product doesn't have a wax coating, as you well aware, a lot of the domestic LVLs made actually have a wax coating on them that will not actually allow our fire retardant to penetrate through it. So, but there are some manufacturers where their weather guard protectant that's applied is more of a penetrating protectant and so allows our chemicals to penetrate into the wood. At the same time, there are domestic LVL manufacturers and glue lam manufacturers that will make it on a truckload basis without a wax coating. We really are kind of almost to a certain degree, as long as the surface of the wood is it's a raw surface and doesn't have any type of waxy coating on it, we're almost unlimited as type of substrates we can treat.
So I'm not familiar with the whole fire treating issue, and I start seeing plans come through, what plans would normally, or what type of projects normally require this fire treatment? I can't imagine the spec home down the street, that guy's going to fire treat anything. So,
Right. I mean, for the most part, I would say 90 to 95% of the wood that we fire treat actually ends up on a multifamily apartment project, which is typically where it's required for exterior walls. You may have, I mean, there's been times where I've looked through plans where, fire retardant treated wood was in the spec. And 10 minutes later, I find out, oh, there's two pieces of plywood that they're using to actually hang their electrical panels on. So in that case, there's a need there as well, but obviously not on a truckload basis, right?
yep.
So yeah, I mean, primarily you're going to see it on your multifamily projects.
Multifamily, student housing, retirement.
Correct. Yep, exactly. Hotels, hotels, motels. I mean, that's actually another good place where a lot of fire retardant treated wood is used.
Okay. Now, let's just go back to the component manufacturers. Does anything have to change for them to spec using your product versus, let's say the pressure treated? What's that process like?
Well, really, they just need to be able to create a part code within their system that will signify it as fire treated, but doesn't have the strength loss reductions as specific other brands. So it's really up to them to create that database, and they'll basically their system and create a part code that might say 2x4 14 FX, which could signify the chemical that we use, and then they could actually use that in their designs and engineering with a zero loss of strength.
Cool. So, all right, we have a question about is it ever applied on the job site? Because as we're talking right now, the process is I need the stuff, I'm shipping it over to Mike and his team, and they're going to do their magic, and it's going to come out pink and fireproofed. But
typically from we are actually certified by the applicators or by the chemical manufacturers that we use to apply their products both in the field and in factories. So for the most part, if we go to a job site and have to apply the chemical on site, it's usually because there's a truss that was actually set within a 4-foot area of maybe a party wall on a townhouse project, and suddenly that truss needed to be fire treated or manufactured out of fire treated material. They didn't do it. As far as applying a fire retardant penetrant on site, usually that's because I forgot to buy this wood as fire treated, so we'll go and fix it. But for the most part, everything else we do as far as a fire retardant, we'll do in our factories.
all right, that's cool. So, what do you see the market for this product expanding? Is there a trend going on as it becomes more popular to, number one, as it becomes more popular to build with wood?
Absolutely. One of the areas, so for example, and I know a lot of the general contractors that are, that actually frame, the general contractors and turnkey framers that are building these apartment projects, they know there's a lot of projects that are out there that are actually designed with the exterior walls balloon framed and non-load bearing, because the wood that they're using for these exterior walls have a reduced capacity or strength capacity. So, we have some customers that are starting to take those plans that are balloon framed with non-load bearing exterior walls, converting them over to traditional way of framing with a fire retardant treated wood that is now just as strong, whether it's fire treated or not. And in some cases, when they do the comparison, just as far as the cost of raw materials, they're seeing on a small apartment project, there can be over $100,000 in savings just in raw material.
Yeah, that's significant for sure.
Which really could, if you think about it, considering the constraints that are on the lumber market and the lumber industry, just trying to find material today, that can really help, potentially alleviate some of that pressure and stress.
Yeah, I think what I look at this, and the biggest advantage I see is that I control my product. I
Hmm.
control the fiber. I'm buying the wood. I'm just sending it to you for that treatment. So I don't
Right.
have to rely on you to, number one, buy the wood, control the cost. So I can actually buy this material. Let's say I'm using a buy and hold strategy for protecting my price. Buy the material, have it sit in a warehouse or sit in my yard, and then when it comes time for that project to kick off, run the trucks over to your facility, get them treated up, drop them at the job site, and you're rocking and rolling.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, we have, that's one of the things that some of our larger customers really love about the fact that we're really more just a TSO. Just we provide the treatment service only, and they can buy 10 trucks of material from a single supplier or mill, and then choose what 5 trucks are going to come to us, 5 trucks are going to go into their inventory. So it just makes their buying process a lot easier, because they're not having to, if they're trying to buy out an entire project, and it requires 10 trucks of 2x612s that are treated, fire treated, 10 trucks of 2x612s that are non-fire treated, and they're buying from somebody that sells a finished product, they're having to, buy from 2 different distributors,
Sure.
versus just, and to your point, we give them what the adder is per thousand. That all they have to do, that adder per thousand is certainly not like the lumber market is. I could sit here and tell you that, if I give you a price today, in June and July, I can tell you that price probably be the same. So knowing that, you can, work on buying just your raw material at the best possible cost you can find it, and the adder for the fire treatment is always the same.
Got it. Um, I know that, let me lead into the final question here. And spoiler alert, we kind of talked about this already, but my final question is always, what do you see coming down the pipe that other people don't, with regard to, the industry? And I think you've already alluded to it a little bit, but, I'll let you run with that.
Well, so obviously we've already talked about the truss industry. I think that, with the lack of strength loss that the finished product offers after we fire treat it, there's huge benefits for the truss companies. But at the same time, there's, as you're well aware, I think everybody is starting to get a little bit more used to hearing offsite and modular construction. Even on apartment projects, it's becoming bigger and bigger industry. And one of our largest customers is a huge innovator in the offsite and modular industry. And one of the things we're working on is getting in with more of those type of manufacturers, because of the need and ease, because we are able to provide fire treated solutions, not just for dimensional lumber and panels, but LVLs. The one manufacturer that we work with, they have every modular or module that they build has at least 4 pieces of 48-foot 9.25 LVL that needs to be fire treated. I mean, it's, they're able to ship it to us. We fire treat it, and they can use it, and it'll have the same strength capacities before it was even shipped to us.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Offsite construction, CLT. We got a question. Can you treat CLT? And CLT, is that treatable?
It absolutely is. It's going to be manufactured out of a yellow pine or a spruce, which that's another thing. Being able to actually fire treat spruce, you can't really pressure impregnate spruce. I mean, you can, but it's such a hard wood that it's actually really hard to get the penetration that you need with a pressure impregnated process. But no, absolutely. I mean, if CLT needs to be fire treated, and I see that Bob Myers is asking that, can it be clear? We actually buy the chemical, the fire retardant penetrant we use. We actually purchase it clear, so we have the option to apply it clear or red. our go-to is red just for your traditional lumber, plywood, OSB, whatever, just so it can be recognized on site. The advantages of being able to do it clear is that it keeps that aesthetic appearance, looking as it did before it was fire treated.
Yeah, that's great for sure. Um, I think this is fantastic, and we know that like the offsite construction is and componentization is only going to grow
Right.
with all the market forces. And I think as the people who are watching this show need to know, and we're helping out here, is when you have a fire treating issue, there's a solution out there, which probably you can fit into your supply chain fairly easily, as long as you know about it ahead of time. And if you
Well,
don't know about it and you mess up, these guys can come out and spray it for you.
and that's just it. One of the things that we do is we provide solutions. Um, you know, it's our CEO Chris Birchfield. He has basically created a great foundation and a great reputation out there as far as being able to provide solutions. Perfect example. Um, we do a lot of work with Disney. The set of Frozen at Disney World needed to have some fire retardant to it. So we worked with the city and worked with Disney and worked with the different chemical manufacturers that we're working with, and we're able to provide a solution that met the requirements.
All right, that is fantastic. So if I'll put this back up there, if someone wants to learn more, their website is globalfire.us, but it's Global Fireproof Solution. Mike Treadwell is on LinkedIn. You can find him there, and I'm sure they'll answer any questions. But highly recommend looking into them, learn a little bit more, because more likely than not, if you're involved in construction, a need to fireproof something is going to come up. So better to know more ahead of time, right?
Exactly.
All right. So thanks, Mike. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day here to help us inform the users of our digital network. We're going to sign off from now until next week. Have a great weekend. And as always, we appreciate your support of Materials Exchange. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brad.